Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. And when I say a beautiful morning, it is absolutely a beautiful morning. You can probably hear in my voice that we've been singing and dancing from Simchat Torah, and we had a beautiful Simchat Torah here in Montreal. A powerful one. Blessings were flowing. The celebration was flowing. When I was a student in yeshiva, very often we would have a farbrengen. And the Farbrengen would last late into the night. And then we would ask the teacher, since I don't know, it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, are the morning classes canceled? Is Hasidus canceled? And the teacher would say, if we're going to cancel the morning classes, what was the point of the Farbrengen? And so today, the day after Simchat Torah, if we would cancel today's class, even though it's just the day after the holiday, then what was the point of Simchat Torah? The point of Simchat Torah is to now renew our relationship and be able to renew our connection and to uh, be able to now learn Torah. See, yesterday we danced with the Torah. It was closed. Now we get to open the Torah again. We start all over again and with an excitement, with a new feeling. And Bereshit, this week's Torah portion, the first portion. Very yesterday, people were sharing different things, and somebody shared that the last letter of the Torah, the word Yisrael, the last letter is Lamed, and the first letter of the Torah is a Bet. The Lamed and the Bet are Lev, heart, love, and that maybe this year, as we renew our connection and our studies, that it be the study of the love of the Torah and see something different that we haven't seen before. So in the portion of Bereshit, there are so many different options of what we can talk about. But I decided today that I'm going to take a bold and, let's say, controversial take on today's portion. And as many of you know from the past, I'm going to try to take something and turn it on its head. And so today I want to talk about two ideas. I want to take them, play with them a bit. I don't mean that in a euphemistic way, and see what comes up on the other side. And these two ideas are feminism and atheism. I can see your faces already. What is going to happen today? So let's get started. The portion of Breshit, Genesis, as it's called, it gives us two accounts of the creation of the first human beings, Adam and Eve. These two accounts, and I'll explain them in a second, they're not redundant, but they are completely opposite. So the first account, in the opening chapter of Bereshit, reads, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Must I read this again? God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Now, before progressing forward, the ambiguity of this account, I think, is already quite striking. So, does God create only man, or does God create man and woman simultaneously? The Torah seems to contradict itself. First, it talks of the creation of the male. God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Yet at the end of the sentence, the Torah alters the story and says, male and female, he created them. Two creatures, male and female, were created by God, by the divine. But there's a second account of the creation of Adam and Eve. This is a little later. And it says, and this is one that people know, maybe you haven't read it in the text, so I'm going to read it to you in English. It says, God cast a deep sleep upon the man, and he slept. And he took one of his sides and closed the flesh in its place. God then fashioned the side that he had taken from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, this time it is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This shall be called Isha, woman, because she was taken from man, from Ish. Ish is man, Isha is woman, because she was taken from man. And the verse finishes saying, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Those are the two accountings. In my opinion, the contrast is astounding. In the first account, man and woman are created simultaneously. Male and female, did he create them? And in the second account, man is created alone. Only afterwards does God, as it says, cast a sleep on him and performs, I guess you'd call it a surgical separation, in which one side of Adam's body is separated and built into a distinct female body, whom Adam then embraces as his counterpart. So, here's my question. After reading these two accounts, I've got a couple of questions, but two questions or three questions primarily that I'm going to cover today. Number one, did God create two people, male and female, or did God create one person and through surgery took part of Adam and crafted it into Eve? That's number one. Number two is, even if you'll find an answer, why does the Torah appear to contradict itself so blatantly? Which means even if we can reconcile this, why does the Torah write it this way? I mean, why would any author write it in such a way? Let's leave it at those two for now. Bible critics love using this text as proof that the Torah had multiple authors. I think they missed the point because the Torah wasn't meant to serve only as a factual chronicle of ancient tales, but the Torah is a blueprint for human living. If paradox, if tension and contrasts are intrinsic to human existence, if that's what human existence is, then they must pervade the pages of the Torah. And the Torah, whose tales and stories are to be understood also as metaphors, embodying the timeless journeys of the human spirit. So the way that I study Torah and the way that we've been studying here together is instead of approaching the Torah with intellectual subtlety or existential depth, many, many critics would use a shallow or narrow methodology to judge the Torah. But, and as we've learned, what it does is it deprives us of a profound richness. It reminds me of the town's fisherman who announces to the townspeople that the fish in the town stream were no smaller than 10 inches. And his mistake was is that he used a net with holes the size of 10 inches. So the tools you employ to determine the truth will define the barometer of the truth that you're going to discover. If you use a net with holes that are 10 inches, you're going to get 10-inch fish. So this inconsistency concerning the male and female creation is no exception. It was intended to capture the tension surrounding human intimacy. Relationships, the Torah is hinting at us, are fraught with paradox. The Talmud, the Midrash, and Kabbalah resolve the contradiction. And they say something that you may or may not have ever heard before. But I'd like to introduce this. They say that Adam and Eve were originally created as a single bigendered creature with male and female halves fused together. And that's why in the first account we read that God created man in his image, and in the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. He create him, or did he create them? And the first human being, the first Adam, was made up of two components, male and female. And they were joined together by their backs. They faced back to back together. So their backs were joining. The him and the them were one. In the second account, God causes the sleep to descend upon this bigendered creature, and then, in a God way, surgically severs its half, creating two separate and freestanding entities. So one bigendered body becomes two. One bigendered soul is split into two. And at this point, Adam and Eve become separate creatures who are then brought together in the union of marriage. The, the two accounts of the male female creation are not contradictory. They actually delineate a two-phased program in the development of humanity. In the first phase, the man and the woman constitute one organism. And that organism is comprised of the masculine and the feminine faces and identities. The two are united physically, they're united mentally, and they're united spiritually. And then in phase two, they become separate beings, and their unity is now a matter of volition, not nature. I hope you're following, because I have another question. We're going to turn this all on its head, don't worry. So here's my next question. But if God desired man and woman to become two distinct genders, as God ultimately had them become. Why did God create them as one and then separate them? Why didn't God initially create them as two separate people, just as all the other animals, every other creature in creation, in the account in Bereshit, is created as two separate entities? Each one was created initially in pairs of female and male. So why is this different? The answer that I can give you is that if God had initially created man and woman as two distinct individuals, as God did with all of the other living organisms, then marriage would have been a superimposed reality. It would have been alien to the innate composition of a man and a woman. That marriage would have constituted a denial of self. It could have still worked, to be sure, but infatuation, romance, love, companionship, desire for children, all of this could compel the self to move beyond its own boundaries and connect with the alien other. But ultimately, these considerations would need to override the, the solitary nature of the human. And when the two conflict, as they do so often, then nature would prevail. However, when the two are one, uniting in marriage, then what it really is or becomes is an expression of their deepest natural identity. It's an expression of their truest, most essential condition, a reassertion of their original composition when they both came into existence as one. So, marriage, relationship, partnership is not a suspension of one's natural individual self for the sake of uniting with a stranger. But what happens is the two return to a natural and pristine state. We've been talking a lot about this idea lately of the soul post trauma, the soul post living in this world, and the soul pre coming into this world pure. And here we have a next level, a single being comprised of two halves and returning to its initial state as it came into this world. So, what is a relationship? It's really the ultimate act of self discovery. And for those of us who have been in long term relationships, you know that it really is an ultimate act of self discovery because you discover more about yourself through a relationship than you would not being in a relationship. And it's simple. It's simply why? Because we all have blind spots. And when you have a partner, it's all of a sudden those blind spots become mirrors instead of blind spots. And so in this unity, what we're really doing in the relationship is reuniting with ourselves, with our second half. So when I'm angry at my partner, it's really a mirror. I'm really angry at myself. And that's why it hurts so much. And when I fight with my partner, it's really a mirror. I'm really fighting with my own soul. Now, I'll just say this because Maybe somebody's going to get the wrong idea. This doesn't mean that without a relationship, that you're defective or you're dysfunctional. Once God separated the two, each was given an independent physical and spiritual identity, which each of us on an individual level are to maximize and use. But since the initial and essential persona of the human is this conglomeration of the masculine and feminine energy, then we are empowered to touch the profoundest core of self through a relationship. So here's my next question. Are you ready? If this is the case, sounds so beautiful from a Kabbalistic perspective, then why then did God separate the first male female Adam into two distinct people? If God wished for Adam and Eve and their male and female descendants to be one, then maybe the two should have just been left conjoined because they would have been able to achieve the ultimate unity by not being separated. I think that such a unity would have made life easier, which means if each of us were born with our partner connected to us, exactly, then we wouldn't need to spend years searching for the right one, worried who is the right one. What do you mean? You're born with the right one. That's the end of it. And during our lives together, the partners wouldn't have to worry whether or not their partner hasn't called for a few hours, or when their partner's coming home, or when well, what other worries that people have about their relationships. The the partner wouldn't be able to shirk responsibility. He wouldn't be able to run to the computer when his wife's in the kitchen. Where she is, he is. Where they are, everyone's one. And here I want to delineate the process of relationships because every relationship requires three stages. The nature of relationship, and all relationships can work this way as well, is oneness, then separation, followed by a new, deeper oneness. Oneness, separation, followed by a new, deeper oneness. Remember the shofar? The long tekiah, then the brokenness, and then the tekiah again that is followed by the brokenness, the wholeness as a result of the brokenness. So this is oneness, separation, and then oneness, a deeper oneness based on the separation. Same concept. So originally, although the two were one, this was compulsory. Joined to each other in creation, they had no choice. They had to deal with it. They had to relate to each other. Think about how you would have to treat if a Siamese twin. Every motion of each of the twins would require consensus. And if not, you'd be pulling each other in opposite directions, and your lives would become unbearable. The relationship between the twins is a result of creation, not celebration. It's a matter of fact, not a matter of choice. And if it was up to your choice, as many Siamese twins, and over the years, those that we've heard of, have attempted, if it was up to your choice, you would sever the bond. You would want to become an independent entity. And I think the same thing is in a relationship. Couples are often strongly connected to each other. They understand the consequences of ignoring the reality of their partner, and they feel the effect of each other constantly. But this is a connection formed under duress. They feel stuck with each other. And only with the separation of Adam and Eve into distinct entities can the component of choice become a possibility. That the two are now able to choose each other willingly and passionately. So volition and enthusiasm can now replace coercion and neediness. They become capable of seeing the other as an independent human being outside of themselves and truly respecting and appreciating the other as an independent entity, as an independent human being. And that separation allows for the relationship to be far deeper and far more united and far more passionate and powerful. Or to quote the Torah, following the separation of Adam and Eve into two distinct humans, and the man said, "This time it is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh." He realizes that Eve is really part of him. He realizes that his partner is really part of him. So the Torah concludes the episode by saying, "And so a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." So now let me summarize, because it's been very theoretical till now. And you know that I won't leave this class theoretical. Let's make it very practical. I think we have three stages, if I had to summarize. We have dependence, independence, and interdependence. Dependence, stage one, independence, stage two, and interdependence, stage three. So, stage one is this natural and complete oneness, not by choice, by nature. Adam and Eve are linked by their backs. They're completely dependent on each other. Where I go, you must go. And if you don't go where I go, we're going to fight about it because we are completely conjoined. We are completely dependent. Stage two, the surgical decoupling, known in our Kabbalistic sources as Nesira, 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 the act of the separation of the genders. And now the two can go their own way and they can live independently. They don't have to actually ever meet up. They don't have to actually ever live with each other. They don't even have to know each other. That's how independent the independence is from the dependence. If you think of the origin story as dependence, the independence is really independent. And now that we have this independence, stage three, two free human beings choose to build a relationship together, knowing that initially they were dependent, initially they were one. They're able to view their voluntary relationship with each other as an expression of their deepest and truest self, notwithstanding the sacrifices in a relationship. And they come to realize that as much as they can achieve on their own, it is through a relationship with the other that I can touch a far deeper part of myself and become a greater version than I could by my independence. Independence is a beautiful thing, but a lot of us get stuck and the independence because it's independent. And then in that independence, we become selfish. But interdependence allows me to be able to achieve and be a much better version of myself because it requires and forces me to be a little less ego, edging God out. It requires me to become a little less selfish. There's no way for me to endure a long-lasting relationship if my ego is controlling my life. So an elderly man would take a long bus ride each morning to an old age home, where his wife of many decades lay in her bed, frail and almost immobile, suffering from Alzheimer's no one should ever know of. At 8:30 a.m., they would always eat breakfast together, and this man would show up at the home, sit with his wife, and feed her and talk to her. And one morning, the nurse approached him and said, "Really, really, sir, you work so hard every day to get here. It must be very difficult. You really don't need to bother to make this trip each morning. Unfortunately, she doesn't recognize you any longer." The man looks up at her and smiles and says, "You're right, but I still recognize her." These three phases, subtly articulated in this beautiful Torah portion, I think are reflected in the history of gender relationships throughout the ages. For thousands of years, marriage was seen as a compulsory contract. You were nobody if you didn't do it. You just did it. That's what you did. And most of the world just did it. Man was made to feel that he must provide for a spouse and children and run a family. And this was his mission. And the woman was made to feel that she must get married and mother a family. And this is her only calling. And this constitutes her complete identity. I mean, I can even feel the PTSD tension as I'm even saying this that's going on in your mind. And her her value would be as an extension of her husband, a conceptual reenactment of the original creation of Eve, attached by her back to Adam. Then comes feminism, which said women need men like fish need bicycles. Become, right? I think that was the great feminist slogan. That the feminism said that men are superfluous to women's needs. And what happens? A revolution. The core message of this revolution: women of the world, forget the dogmatic role that's imposed upon you as a wife, as a mother. Allow not the dogma of millennia to hinder your success and future. Become your own person. Be like the men. Build a career. Make something of yourself. You are an individual. You're independent of all the dogmas that people are imposing upon you. And this, historically speaking, I would say was a reenactment of stage two, the Adam and Eve drama, the separation. Adam and Eve are two separate people. They can go their own ways and they can do their own things. They can fish and they can ride bicycles. And the truth is, the concept worked. We are a result of that idea. A new generation of men and women emerged with the view of marriage as completely voluntary. And even for those who did or do marry, divorce became a common option. The divorce rate was very high at the height of this. In the 90s, the 80s and 90s, divorce rate became over 50%. So we see this in actuality, and not so long ago in our lifetime, that no more are we compelled to stick it out in a marriage. There's a life before and there's a life after. But I ask a question today because society has to progress. So my question is, at least in my mind, is that all? At this point, when marriage became voluntary, when relationships are voluntary, and even if you're married, the divorce rate is so high, have we reached the peak of civilization? With all the blessings of feminism, and has brought so much to the world, thank God. I think as many great movements, we've also seen the heartbreak of many people who, in their older years, become filled with remorse. How many women have shared with me their regrets for sacrificing on the altar of feminism their most profound yearnings and dreams to be able to love endlessly, to embrace a child, maybe even one day a grandchild, to travel through life with a partner, with a soulmate. People have expressed in recent years their feelings that in the name of individual liberation, they've become mimickers of men instead of finding their own true connection and soul. And so I think today we need to ask ourselves, where do we go from here? History is a one-way road. So what next? What's the next stage? And here is the historical and I think the divine brilliance of Bereshit of this portion. Because feminism only represents stage two in the Adam and Eve drama, which is only a preparation for stage three in the story. Because once Adam and Eve have been completely separated, they're empowered to discover the deepest relationship imaginable. A relationship that is born from inner conviction and from passion. And our society is yearning today for this stage. I see it so often. We are yearning for a renewed passion in relationships, but a passion that is not based on coercion, that's not based on social pressure, a passion that is based on an inner realization that the construct, the family constitutes our deepest truth. Or as it says in the Torah portion this week, and man said, this time it is the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So let me explain this idea. The same three stages are reflected in the relationship of society with faith. World changes during the last 300 years. 300 years ago, everybody was religious, very primitive religious. People were superstitious. They believed in all sorts of relationships they had with God, with other gods, with non-gods. Sometimes these links were deeply perverted. Some of these were deeply skewed, erroneous. Sometimes they were nice and beautiful and experiential. But it was an essential part of human life. People have told me as children, everybody went. You went to church, you went to synagogue, everybody went somewhere. That's what everybody was religious, and few knew of anything else. These so-called gods were part of our reality. If you read the Torah, you'll witness an enormous temptation for idolatry amongst ancient peoples, including the Israelites, including the Jews. I've always wondered, I mean, I can't imagine people today having a temptation for idolatry in the way that they described idolatry of that time. In the later period, in the fourth century and in the seventh century, the monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, they swept the world. But the world remains religious. This was millennia long reenactment of stage one of the relationship between Adam and Eve, which is seen in the Kabbalah as the metaphoric of our relationship with God. After thousands of years, following the Reformation, following the Renaissance, a new voice emerged in human consciousness. It was the voice of the modern, secularism, a world perspective that was completely divorced from religion. In the beginning of the 18th century, Enlightenment was born. Hobbes, James, Voltaire, the fathers of the Western Enlightenment changed the way the people thought. Suddenly, Adam and Eve didn't need each other any longer. They can find happiness within themselves. Suddenly, the human was severed from God. In Nietzsche's words, God is dead. The new focus was now on the individual. We search for self-actualization, for self-awareness. I've thought about this. It's interesting that the phrase about women needing men like fish needing bicycles was coined by Irina Dunn. She was an Australian educator, a journalist, and a politician who coined the phrase back in 1970 when she was a student at the University of Sydney. And she paraphrased the philosopher who said, man needs God like fish needs bicycle. So on some level, the two notions are really connected. I digress. So this was a historical expression of stage two in the Adam and Eve relationship, in the Adam and Eve drama. No religion and no authority could impose its dogmas on the free human. We, as humans, were emancipated from the cords that tied us to God. And just as Eve was once emancipated from her knot with Adam, so too the human was emancipated from religion, from God. But is that all? At this point in the Enlightenment, have we reached the zenith of civilization? If we banish God from our new Garden of Eden, will the world finally heal? And we were kind of stuck there in this space, in this stage for years. The beginning of my rabbinate, I had a very hard time. Anytime I would say the word God, I would see. I mean, I could see people's reactions to the words that I say, and the word God would be such a trigger word. Would be such no, no. I mean, atheism. Like, how can people saying, "Oh, how could you do what you do? How could you be like you are?" And over the past couple of years, I've seen a shift in that. I've seen this third stage starting to emerge. And I think now, today, I mean literally today, this past few days have been some of the most profound days of my life, of my rabbinate. I cannot tell you how many people I primarily interact with a modern world. I'm not the rabbi of the shtetl. I'm not a rabbi of the Jewish bubble. The people that I interact with on a regular basis are people that are in the world and are questioning and are trying to find purpose and meaning. And what I have seen from the letters and the messages that I've gotten is a shift. There's a shift going on in the world now. A question. The incredible, every single hostage that has come out has come out with some level of religion, of God. Basically every single one of them was completely secular 2 years ago. Some of them really, really atheistic and secular. And it seems to me that the longer they were in the torture of captivity, the more religious they wanted to be. I mean, coming out and wanting the first thing, a pair of tefillin. The first thing, the conversations on Tuesday, I couldn't help but notice. Maybe it's because I look at it through my rabbinic lens. Okay, you're going to say you're the rabbi. Of course, you're looking at it like this. But I couldn't help to but notice every single person speaking, God, God, God. From world leaders to individual humans, there's a shift that's going on in the world. There's an embracement that's happening in this third stage. And I think, at least for the first time in my life, I see the world as entering this stage. With all the blessings of the modern world, we need to rediscover God. The more modern science and physics are progressing, the more we're discovering the infinite and the paradoxical mind at the core of the cosmos. And what is more, I think that if we believe that humans came about by accident, then life has no meaning. There can be no meaning to something that happens by chance. A random explosion or mutation cannot give us purpose. And whether I live a good life or one full of evil, it makes no difference. It's all a big accident anyway. We only have purpose if we were created by intelligent design, if we were created on purpose, if we teach the next generation that they were created on purpose, with a purpose, then they will know that more is expected from them than from an animal. Over the generations, people have been sad, but depression is a first world problem. Depression happens when we don't feel a purpose, when we don't feel like we're needed. And Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism teaches that the centuries of the new secularism are essentially the reflection of stage two in the Adam and Eve story. And they only serve as a catalyst for stage three, in which we use the freedom given to us to choose a relationship with God, realizing that this relationship is not about dogma. It's not about coercion. No one's forcing us or any of us to be here or any of us to listen to this. But this relationship is the ability for the human being to touch our deepest core, the deepest part of ourselves, that interdependence that is done from our free choice. I choose this. And I believe that this is our calling today. And I see it in the tears of joy. I see it in the celebrations of life. I am so proud, and I can't say it enough. I am so proud to be part of a people that does not take the high road, but takes the highest road. Right now, in this moment, the leaders of the world are asking an insane question. Why do you care so much about dead bodies? You got your hostages. Leave it alone. Let's go on to phase two. We want peace. Why do you care so much about your dead bodies? And I think this is the first opportunity that we as a Jewish people have to show how much we care about life, what life really means for us. That life is not just, I'm in this world by chance. It was an accident. I'll just do whatever I can. No, that life is filled with meaning. Not only is life filled with meaning, but in my lifetime, I will do the best I can to fulfill my mission in this world. And then after my lifetime, that my body becomes holy and holy things are buried. All holy things are buried. My body that performed and did the mitzvot, that did good deeds, that made this world a better place, it is holy. And from the earth I came, as in this week's Torah portion, and the earth I shall return. And the beautiful gift of of Kfurat Yisrael, of burying according to Jewish law, of burial, that every single person should receive a true burial. And the world of secularism can't understand that. And this is going to be, and you're going to watch this happen over the next couple of days because it's going to be a great challenge because it's holding up a process. And this is an opportunity. I have had many, many conversations over the years with people who say, "Oh, I just cremation." I mean, to me, cremation, it's like the chimney of the gas chambers. That's what I think of cremation. I mean, how can anybody after the Holocaust think of this? It's cheap. Why you spend money? All these reasons. And I've reasoned with people. Obviously, I don't make choices for people. I just support the choices they make. But sometimes it's very hard to support choices that I know that are antithetical to Jewish values. And I think today the conversation's changed again because now it's not about this theoretical idea. Look at what's going on. I am so proud to be part of a people that values life to this level. We don't only value the living, we value every single human. And every single human deserves eternal peace and the ability to be buried. And so, while some have taken their hostage pins off and some have said it's done, it's not done. We still await hostages that are not home yet. And we grieve with those families today. And we are celebrating 20 beautiful souls that were returned. And this Simchat Torah definitely showed it in so many ways. But we also love life and see life in such a powerful way. A life of meaning, a life of purpose. And I believe that now we have entered this third stage of interdependence. And with that stage, both in our relationships and in our relationship with God, we have to look and ask, What does this mean to me? And each of us will have different answers to this. And maybe over the course of time, the passage of time is very beautiful. Those answers will change and they will evolve and they will be worked through because that's, at least in my life, I love what I knew yesterday may be different than what I know today. And I love to be able to change and to learn from all of you and to grow and to be able to see the world through so many different lenses, not to be stuck in the bubble of what I knew, but in the possibility and the potential of what I will know and what I'll be able to integrate. So Hashem should bless each and every one of us. First, Hashem should bless that really, that the hostages, all of them should come home and that we should truly enter an era of peace because peace is so close. We have so much hope. We've held on to this hope. We have prayed. It's amazing to me. It's just amazing that we prayed and we prayed and God said yes. And God should continue to say yes to all of our prayers. And this year, as we enter a new Jewish year, we are now today. Today, the tradition, the word that we say today is Yaakov halach l'darko, and the Torah, when it says that Jacob went on his way. Jacob went on his way. That's it. We start the year. Or in the words of one great song, hit the road, Jack. This is what we say today. Now we go on our day, in our year. Now it's all starting. The next Jewish holiday is going to be in a number of months from now. So we have an opportunity to grow, to learn, to look at the world differently. And Hashem should bless us physically. Hashem should bless us mentally and emotionally. And those blessings should carry us. We should bottle up all the energy of this beautiful, beautiful time. And it should carry us through the entire year. With that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. The Hasidic masters would say, Wie stellt sich Shabbos Bereishis geht the ganze year, how you establish yourself on this Shabbat, the first Shabbat of the year, that goes the entire year. And so we should establish on this Shabbat, we should think of one practice, one routine that we can get into spiritually, that we can establish and say, this is how I establish myself, and this is how the rest of the year will go. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.